I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education, Tuesday, November 19th, 2013 at 7 p.m. Kathy, could you call the roll?
Yes.
Here. Here.
Capistrano? Here. Block?
Here.
Stoops?
Here.
No.
Here. Mrs. Locke, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Hitchens, are there any items moved or changed to tonight's posted agenda?
Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to add one donation under 5.5. You're going to hear about it during Celebrating Successes. The Batavia Foundation is here to give us, some of our teachers, some grants. So we would like to approve those in our donations under item 5.5.
Excellent. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda with that addition of the grants from the Education Foundation?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Stoops, second by Locke. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we would like to move on to public comments. If anyone wishes to address the board this evening under public comments, please see our recording secretary, Kathy Scafidi. She will give you a pink form that has our board policy for addressing the board. Please put your full name and address on the sheet, as we're required by state law to keep a detailed set of minutes for our meetings. If you would prefer to provide comments for the entire board in written form, there is a blue form that Kathy can give you. When you address the Board of Education or administration will not enter into dialogue on an issue. This doesn't mean we don't take your issue seriously. If you have unanswered questions, a board member or an administrator will get back to you regarding the matter at a later date. If you have any props or visual aids that you wish to use to address the board, please have those reviewed by Dr. Hitchens, our board elected secretary, prior to your presentation. We ask that anyone who addresses the board to please come forward to the microphone so they can be heard. And Kathy, do we have all the pink sheets? We do. We do, thank you. At this point, if anyone else would like to address the board, please give Kathy a pink sheet, a blue sheet. You can share your thoughts in writing, and then Kathy will make sure that the entire board is apprised of your comments. First person we'd like to call forward is Lynn D'Amico. Hi there. Hi.
Communication, community, embracing stakeholders as valuable resources. I hear repeatedly that these words mean as much to you as they do to me. May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Over these months, I and others have used every outlet available. Principal chat, which is a forum-style gathering, email correspondence to leaders at both the school level, administrative level, and board level, Board of Education meetings, coffee and conversation meetings, which were led by board members, telephone calls to school leaders, administrative leaders, and board members. Sadly, I still have the same unanswered questions. How are we to embrace and support all of the current and incoming programs at HC Storm with no information on how our physical plant will be restructured within its existing footprint to accommodate both the new children coming in and our current mass academic population? How are we to encourage community at our school when we do not allow or encourage our children to move about their community and visit different classrooms with different academic atmospheres every day? Is there a plan to rededicate classrooms at HC Storm for the arts? I'm shocked that what I thought were general questions regarding the overall structure and planning to accommodate the growth of student body programs and the need for interventions at HC Storm have gone utterly unanswered. You have parents ready and willing to communicate with you and to play an active role as resources to help solve these current and pressing problems. Please share information with us. It's the right thing to do. Communicate, community, embrace your stakeholders as valuable resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any representatives from the PTOs that they would like to address the board tonight?
Maybe Nelson's here.
Yay! Come forward, Davy Nelson.
Good evening. I am Kathleen Hilberg. I'm the PTO president at JV Nelson. I'm Shannon Gifford, vice president, PTO at JV. So first of all, we would like to thank the board tremendously in the district for all the improvements at JV Nelson. Over the summer, we got new lights, window coverings, and blacktop parking lot. The parents, students, and kids are ecstatic. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Our PTO is really working to support all the students and all the staff. We provide money for ongoing supplementals. We will provide money for field trips. We have a family reading night on Thursday that we give money to. We give money to the LRC for the Accelerated Reader Program. We do teacher appreciation, we do volunteer appreciation, because we really appreciate our parents helping for all that. We recently did the courtyard cleanup where several parents and the Boy Scouts all came and cleaned our courtyard, got all the old weeds out and put some beautiful flowers in, and the children love walking through there. We're working to put together a very small outdoor classroom where children can go out there and read and sit with their teachers in good weather. There is some. We did make a big purchase the very beginning of the year. We bought new soccer goals for our field. The children love, love, love soccer at JV Nelson, and so they really are loving the new soccer goals. So that was our big major purchase this year. Our recent walkathon, we raised more than expected. Our goal was $8,000. We raised over $9,600. So the children had voted on some new climbing equipment for the playground. So we're working on purchasing that and trying to get a community build to install it, hopefully in the spring. We are also starting a teacher wish list, which was something that was apparently at JV Nelson several years ago and has kind of fallen away. So we're going to put up a wish list for all our teachers, and then looking at what our budget is, grant some wishes towards the end of the year, which hopefully they will really look forward to. And we're really looking to get more input from the parents on what our future fundraising goals will end up being. From what we've heard from the parents, much bigger push towards technology. So we will hopefully start looking into what that means for JV Nelson and what would be appropriate for JV Nelson. And using the fun fair, which we're bringing back this year, to hopefully raise money to go towards that technology fund if that's where the biggest need seems to be. So we're very excited for our fun fair. Most of the students that are at JV Nelson have never seen one because it's been several years. So they're very excited. They have no idea what to expect. So it'll be a very fun event and very family centered. So we appreciate everything that you guys do for JV Nelson and for all our other schools, and the parents are working towards raising funds to help supplement all of that.
Thank you. We appreciate everything you do too, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very much.
Is anyone here from BESPA tonight? Then I'd like to invite Amy Biancheri to the podium, our VE Vice President.
Good evening.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, I have a couple of updates this evening. The first, our negotiations team met for the first time, just an initial meeting, and we are going to conduct some one-on-one interviews with all of our members to find out what their needs and wants are for the upcoming negotiations. We'll be doing that for the next 2 months, and then we start breaking down that information. Also, an update, last month we conducted several listening forums for our members to find out what their issues were, and we just wanted to give you an update. We've been meeting with administration, and working through some of those issues and how to better communicate out to members and where we're going to go forward from there. So that's been really productive and helpful to, I think, all parties involved. The third thing, Linda Chapalavia, the representative, introduced legislation to abolish the Illinois Charter School Commission. So that's House Bill 3754, and that was just introduced. So we'd be in support of that, obviously. And then the last thing I wanted to give you an update on is an update on the BEA appraisal consultants that we started this year. A little history for people if you're not aware of the backstory. Since our appraisal system is so new, and since we were a waiver district in the past, so we did not have the Danielson framework for everybody, and a lot of people have not had people in their classroom, tenured teachers in years. So it's a brand new system for us, and the BEA wanted to support our members, so we created 16 positions. We call them BEA appraisal consultants, and we received the same training that all of the appraisers in the district got. We got we had to take all the tests for the state of Illinois so that we basically have the same training and we see the same things that the appraisers do. And this program is fully funded by the BEA. It's a benefit to the members, so we pay for it ourselves. And every one of the 16 people who are doing it passed the state evaluator training, and there's one in every elementary building. There's one kind of roaming special education teacher, one for each division at the middle school and one for each division at the high school. So it's been pretty helpful. So far this year, we've asked everybody to log their time that's been doing it and log what they've been doing with their time. And as of today, we've logged 2,400 minutes, which is 40 hours of appraisal consulting that's happened in the buildings, and 25 minutes of the 2,400 had to have a sub. So it's mostly during lunch periods and before and after school and on people's planned times and that sort of thing. And the members have been using it for a lot of different things, for pre and post conference consultations, for helping with appraisal paperwork, interpreting the Danielson model, classroom observations and feedback to teachers on their practice, which we wanted it to be proactive, so it's been very nice that way. Presenting information at meetings, and some of us have been working with evaluators and DCs to sort of be all on the same page and give the same message and be able to say the same things to all staff members so that everybody's interpreting things the same way. And so far it's been really helpful to members. We're going to continue to log our time and kind of see at the end and give you a report out at the end about how it's worked so far. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy.
Item 4 on our agenda is celebrating successes. First, I would like to invite the Rotolo Middle School boys and girls cross country team. I'm not sure which coaches, Coach Meeks, Coach Hellman, and Coach Montgomery did a fabulous job of coaching our team this year. If you could come forward and tell us all about them.
I don't think we're all going to sit down. We'll stand.
It's a cross country team.
All right.
Want to bring your kids around here?
Yeah, you guys want to kind of throw a filter in? Well, this is only a fraction of the team. There was 120 members on the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade RMS cross-country team this year, and these are the members that represented them downstate in the IESA 3A state finals, and they brought back second place in both the boys and the girls. So we have here tonight Mark Montgomery, Bronco Meeks, and Kate Hillman. I probably should knock that over either. And Kate, Coach Hillman's going to talk a little bit more about the team in general.
So as you can see, this is just a small portion of the team, but we had 20 students represent us at the state meet, 10 for the girls, 10 for the boys. But as a whole, they're part of a much larger team, as Mr. Anderson stated. They've been working hard from summer camp all the way through this season and have represented us quite well. So with a little patience, we've got a long list of accomplishments that these kids have made over this season, and I just wanted to make sure that we recognized all those. So starting with just overall accomplishments as a whole team, the 8th grade boys, the 8th grade girls, the 7th grade girls all went undefeated in all of our conference meets this entire year. In the past 2 years, the 8th grade boys have placed first in every meet except for the state meet. We had 7 girls make our all-time 2-mile top list, 6 boys made our all-time 2-mile list, and every single runner on the team ran their entire race by the end of the year. This is the 7th year in a row that's happened. They participated early in their season at the Crusader Flighted Invitational, which features 13 different teams. They came home overall champions and also were division champions with the 8th grade girls, the 7th grade girls, and the 8th grade boys divisions. And the Bulldogs brought home 20 of 28 individual medals awarded. We also were a part of the Troy Invitational, which is the largest middle school cross-country meet in the state. Besides, obviously, even bigger than the state meet, there were 38 teams that they competed against. They were overall champions, 38 schools. They came home champions. The 8th grade girls won their division, the 7th grade girls won their division, and the 8th grade boys also won their division. Bulldogs brought home, 6th grade girls won theirs as well. Mary Grace Golden was our 8th grade girls champion overall race, and I believe there were over 300 athletes in that race. Josie Adams, who is a 6th grader up here, she is a 6th grade girls champion at the Troy Invitational. So there's many trophies in the cases at Rotolo. They also went to the Yorkville Foxtrot, first year ever. They came home overall meet champions there. The varsity girls, the varsity boys, the JV girls were all champions. The JV boys brought home 2nd place. Caleb Still was an open division champion, and the Bulldogs brought home 38 of 80 individual medals. At the conference meets this year, the 8th grade girls were conference champions for the 4th year in a row. The 7th grade girls were conference champions. The 8th grade boys were conference champions for the 2nd year in a row. And the 7th grade boys brought home 3rd place. Michael Ronzone, who couldn't be here tonight, was our conference champion for the 2nd year in a row. And Megan Ronzone, his sister, was also a conference champion. Andrew Moore and Alexa Andrews were also open division champions. Then we move on to the state series, and the state series has kind of been something that we started that's very new. More and more schools are doing it, and this was our opportunity, 2nd year in a row competing in IESA state series. At their sectional meets, the girls brought home 1st place in their sectional. The boys also brought home 1st place for the 2nd year in a row. And we had both the sectional champions with Emma Stevens for the girls and Michael Ronzone for the boys. And finally, ending their season at the IESA state meet, they brought home state runner-up trophies for both the 3A girls and the 3A boys, making state history, being the first school ever to bring home state trophies in both the boys and girls divisions for Class 3A. With that, we had 3 all-state girls. Emma Stevens took 2nd place, Mary Grace Golden took 7th place, and Megan Ronzone 9th place. And we had 1 all-state boy, meaning they were 25th overall. Michael Ronzone took 3rd place. So with that, I would like to recognize the members that are here from the teams today. So on our all-state team for the girls, Emma Stevens, Mary Grace Golden, Megan Ronzone, Erica Mansfield, Daphne Colodi, Audrey Pellico, Josie Adams, Mia Gianfrancesco, Anna Holcomb, and Dessa Babaski. For the state trophy were Michael Ronzone, Sean Adams, Tyler Bemper, Jack Gillerlane, Shane Kananishu, Joe Kananishu, Drew Lillig, Dylan Schick, Tommy McDonald, and Peter Novak. That is a really, really long list of things to go through, but I think it just goes to show how much work these young gentlemen and ladies put in all season long, and we couldn't be prouder as coaches. They do so much of this, and it's so self-motivating kind of a sport where they have to get themselves out there. They have to get up early in the morning to run, and they have to push through every workout. And I think the numbers really helped because they always had someone on their tail pushing them to run faster. And we just want to say thank you to the community of Batavia, because I think these kids, after the state meet, really were honored to come through with the police escort and the fans cheering all the way down Wilson Street. And I think they were so proud to be Bulldogs that day. So we thank you for recognizing them, and we are looking forward to what they're going to bring us in the future.
Thank you.
Way to go.
Are you guys going to go on to the high school and run cross country? All right, good job. Good job.
Yeah, I know.
Good job.
Good job, you guys.
Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they going to recognize you? Would you recognize, some of us have not gotten here early enough because of the fact that there was no parking and we had a very difficult time getting here. Public comments, still feel we'd like to speak on public comments.
It's out of order though, I know, so if...
We prefer just written comment because of our agenda tonight, but we definitely will read it and share it with the entire board. And it will be available for public perusal in the next minute. All your comments will be listed there.
You will hear.
No, not tonight. Next, I'd like to invite...
Very unconstitutional. I really do. I think she should have an opportunity to speak at this meeting because it's very, very important. It is important to every citizen of Batavia and the school. Please let her speak.
We can't go backward, but we definitely will make sure that everyone gets a copy of what you're...
I want it done now.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
I think it's very unconstitutional what you're doing.
In the next meeting, we'll have the public hearing before the...
Right. So you understand that, Ms. Keppel, that we will have our public hearing at the next meeting, and you're also invited back to speak then, too.
I won't be here.
I'd like to invite Nan Phillips and Chris Winkle forward to tell us about the Batavia Education Foundation grant awarded.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I cannot talk the middle school cross-country team, so I'm not going to try. But my name's Chris Winkle, and I'm the chairperson of the Batavia Foundation for Educational Excellence this year. I'm very proud to be here to represent our group. I want to stress before Nan gives the awards to the teachers that we had 15 applications this year for this portion of the grants. We had 15 grant applications, and we were lucky enough to award all of those grant applications, which I think is notable. We really are working hard to, while we have a stringent guidelines to adhere to, we also really want to help the teachers in any way we can. So I want you to know that we did supply all the teachers with their grants this year, which is great. I want to also thank Brad Newkirk for helping us. He's just, we can't thank him enough for all the help that he gives the teachers for getting their grants written correctly and concisely, and he really helps us on the other side, to go through all the grant applications. So Nan ran the committee, and we had a grant committee of 6 members that worked very hard on looking at the grant application, so she can take it from there.
It's nice to be here. The foundation works so hard to raise the money, and that is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. And then when we get to give the money away via the grants, we celebrate that occasion because that's what we're all about. As Chris said, we had 15 applications that totaled $8,510.61, and we were able to fund all of that. With our endowment funds, we have the interest from the endowment that we give away every year will be a total of over $33,000 between the fall mini grants, which are limited to $700 or less. And then in the spring will be March 15th, right around March 15th. Spring grants will be due, and we'll give away the remainder of that $33,000. So we always look forward to that and encourage community, teachers, to start thinking of ideas now, because that deadline will be here before you know it, and we want great ideas coming up in March. We also have granted, every year we have a memorial funding, allocated funds for Andrea Will, and $500 is designated to go to something in the fine arts. And so we were able to give that money away in this round. So we're happy to celebrate that again, too. 2 of the 15 grants met the criteria for continuing, which means they were used previously at one building, and now it was a good idea, it was successful, and it's moved on to another building, and we're happy to do that. The foundation didn't, once it had been done in the past, you can apply at another building for that same great idea. And we changed some of those requirements a couple years ago, and we're finding that that's a really good way to go, so we're happy with that. The grants ranged from building blocks, manipulatives, to technology support, to supporting BATV, which we know as a community is a great thing to do. So we're happy to do that as well. So we have a number of our teachers here today that took the time to write the grants after they had come up with the idea, and we want to celebrate with you all tonight. So I'd like to introduce Kelly Stern. From Gustafson, she wrote a grant called Girls on the Run, which was already done at Storm School, and it will be done now at Gustafson. Congratulations. The next 3 people are all from Rotolo Middle School. They're the counselors, and they are receiving a grant called Counseling Academically At-Risk Students Due to Excessive Absences Utilizing Data with Chromebooks. So they're going to be using technology to follow through with all of that. So Kara Hygen. Thank you. And Julie Neese and Julie Webb. Thank you. Our next group of teachers is from Storm School. They're first grade teachers, and they wrote a grant using manipulatives called the Rec and Rec? Yeah. Okay. Looks to us like abacus type manipulatives that are helping them with number grouping and regrouping. So Jody Bird is not here tonight, but Jennifer Torgeson and Marianne Weidner are here. Holly Dykeman is here from Batavia High School and BATV. We are helping to fund a small portion of a lot of money that's coming in to help with communication devices between cameramen and directors. So congratulations. Thank you very much. Dan Russo is here from Batavia High School Learning Center. He wrote a grant called Collection Connection, teaching students how to access public library ebooks and audiobooks with their iPads. And I think that's the extent of everyone who was able to make it tonight, but I want to announce the other awardees. We didn't see you. In the blue room, green room, whatever. Amanda Karasinski and Jane Voss are here from Beaverwood School. And they wrote a grant called Bring the Blocks Back. Wonderful program with building blocks for your kids. Thank you. Now is that all? Did I miss anyone else? Oh, Jamie. Jamie Schumacher is here from Rotolo. And she wrote a grant called Heard a Good Book Lately, where she's going to be using audiobooks. Playway. Thank you. Now, we also awarded money to Catherine Cessna and Jenna McKnight from the Rotolo Middle School Art Department to purchase scholastic magazines that they will use in their art classes. So we're happy about that. Monica Hubble and Lynn Swider from Rotolo Middle School wrote a continuing grant, The Sky's the Limit, which is helping those interior classrooms with their lighting panels to give a little bit better atmosphere. And Dawn Zalkas from Batavia High School, and you're gonna love this one. If Peter Pugmill processed a pile of pretty pottery, how much pretty pottery could Peter Pugmill process? This is to help with the purchase of recycling clay leftovers so that they get the most bang for their buck with their clay supplies. So happy with that one too. And 3 teachers from Hooverwood. 3 fifth grade teachers wrote a grant using Chromebooks within their classrooms. So Carol Autenreith, Todd Swanson, and Julie Murphy are the 3 teachers from there. So congratulations to them all. It was a great variety, and we look forward to March.
You know, I hate to be a nerd, but the Robert Rules of Law state specifically that if a person is there at a meeting that comes late on a specific issue, they have the opportunity to talk at a later time during that meeting. And I would like Sylvia to talk at this meeting. Now, you're going to have another meeting at another time, and I will not be here.
Okay, so
On my way to Florida.
locally, we're allowed to come up with our own rules about public comment, so we have those at the beginning of the meeting, and we've since moved on in the agenda. There are other opportunities for her to talk. I know you won't be here.
Yeah, but I want her to talk tonight.
I apologize, but we're going to move on, so we will get her written comments in, and we'll talk about other opportunities for her to share with us. So I apologize that she can't do that today, but we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Item number 5 is our consent agenda. It's a method of streamlining our meetings by taking one vote on a number of routine personnel and business items. Each of the items is detailed in the agenda and it's been appropriately posted in the board packet. And Mr. Inglesi, will you read the consent agenda?
I'd be happy to. The consent agenda tonight includes approval of minutes from the meetings of the board of the last month. It includes resignation of personnel, employment, retirement, and leaves of absences of a number of individuals. It also includes routine financial items. Our total payrolls and bill listings for the month total almost $1.3 million. It includes the treasurer's report, donations from 4 different organizations, FOIA requests. It also includes putting 2 policies on first reading, visitors, and 2 in conduct on school property, and recognition for service. It includes the board's approval for Batavia High School overnight trips, and puts textbooks on display at Batavia High School. It also includes the approval by the board of the Rising Star program, approval of the lease of copiers for the district schools, and that is all the items on the consent agenda for this evening.
Are there any items on the consent agenda for removal or for clarification?
Just one clarification. Mr. Inglesi said there were 4 donations. You did amend it to include the donations from the foundation as well.
Which makes 5.
That's true.
Thank you, Dr. Hahn. Any other removal clarifications? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Moved by Blakely, second, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Second by Impastato. I heard someone over there. Any discussion?
I do have one item that a board member asked me to bring up in discussion about the policy. So we have policy committee meetings the week before a board meeting, and at the policy meeting last Wednesday, we talked about the visitors to and conduct on school property. So this is a first reading for the board, and one of the board members at the policy committee meeting said, let's make sure people understand why we're amending this to include e-cigarettes, and I think that our current policy as it's written is a tobacco policy, and so we made it an adjustment to our policy here to include e-cigarettes, which are really go against our what we're trying to promote of healthy habits for students. So and this would be the adults that are using e-cigarettes in our facilities. Mainly it's been happening at the Batavia Fine Arts Center and during intermissions. And so we don't have a policy that addresses it, but we are allowed to make a local policy about this. So we're proposing that we not allow people in our lobby to use their e-cigarettes, which are just a vapor, not necessarily, we don't even know if they have nicotine or not. You can't tell by looking at them. So, but we would like to promote healthy habits for our students and not have them see that in our lobby of our BFAC or anywhere in our facilities. So that's where that one came from, in case you're wondering how that ended up on the agenda at our policy meeting.
Any further questions or discussion? I have a motion and a second. Kathy, could you call the roll, please?
Blakely.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Hodge.
Yes.
Sato.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Drummoll.
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 6 are items for discussion or information only. Lisa Palacey, could you please come and tell us about the education of homeless students?
Please, everyone.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. I have had the privilege of being the homeless liaison for Batavia Schools for 3 years now. This is my 3rd year. When I started this role, I didn't realize that we had homeless students in Batavia, so I thought it would be the easiest part of my job. And that is a lot different than I thought. So I wanted the board to be aware and the public to be aware of kind of the needs in our school. So we're going to start with just some facts. There are 1,700 identified homeless students in King County right now, as of this year. 52 of them live right here in Batavia. We know that we have a lot more students that are unidentified, mostly because a lot of our families are afraid of losing their shelter or afraid of telling us where they're currently living because they're afraid that their children will lose the chance at an education. So we're really working hard to just help to identify these students. So I think the biggest thing that's really important is just for us to understand what does it actually mean to be homeless. One of the most common things that we see is doubled up. So of our 52 students, most of the students that we are helping live doubled up. Sometimes that means 3 or 4 families in one apartment or one house in Batavia. We have 12 students that are currently living in motels. One of those families has 6 children, and every Friday they move to a different motel to get a better rate. We have several families that are living in emergency shelters, including Lazarus House and Hesed House. And then these are other definitions of homeless that don't affect any of our families at this time. There is laws that protect our students, and the whole idea is that we want our students to know that once you come to school, if you're identified homeless, we want you to be able to stay here in Batavia or stay in whatever school you started out before you became homeless. We know that every time a child moves from one school to another, even if it's just moving from J.V. Nelson to H.C. Storm School, they can lose months of education and months of learning. So the law really protects our students to know that wherever you were before you became homeless, that's the school that we want you to stay at. Oops. Was it me?
I don't know.
Okay. Couple different things that we're seeing more and more of Batavia, especially with our high school students, is we have what's called unaccompanied youth, and that simply means that the child is not living with their own family. So we have some runaways that have either left their home because of different disruptions that are going on there. We also have throwaways, which basically just means that there was things going on in their house and and the parents said, I just can't take care of you anymore, so they're living with friends or relatives, doubled up or in shelters. The whole idea goes back to that one child, one school, 1 year. So kids that are homeless have 2 options, and families that bring their students here have 2 options. One is to stay at your school of origin, and that really just means that wherever I was when I became homeless is where I can continue to go to school. So if we have a student that's living in Batavia and they're temporarily going to be living in Elgin or Aurora or Downers Grove or Sugar Grove, wherever it might be, the students have a right to continue at their school of origin, and it's our responsibility to transport them to and from school. We work together with the other school districts to make that happen. The other option for the kids is they can go to the school in their neighborhood. So we do get a lot of students that are temporarily living in Batavia that may make the choice to actually continue at Batavia schools until they get into a better situation. So those are their 2 choices. There's lots of different things that we are required to do to support that, and then we're going to talk about the things that we do, I think, in Batavia to go above and beyond that. So the first piece is immediate enrollment. So we're really working with our secretaries and our administrators to understand that when a student comes and shows up at our doors and they don't have proof of residency, or they don't have their medical records or even their birth certificate, we want to get them into school and we want to make sure that they're safe, and then we can do some investigating and help them gather the materials that they need. We want to make sure that they have transportation back to their school of origin. So every week, sometimes every day, I'll get a call from a family that says, now we're temporarily living at this address, can you help us? And we work with our transportation company to make sure that they get to school the next day. We take care of their fees for school. We make sure that they have school supplies, a backpack. We make sure that they have basic clothing needs, particularly uniforms for gym. And we set them up with things. So if it's a student that has a health issue, we help them reach out to a doctor, or we help to find different counselors in the area that can support them. We also take a look at additional tutoring and get them right into the free lunch program. So as soon as we find out that a student is homeless that day, we make sure that a lunch is provided for them. And the whole idea is we want to kind of even that playing field and give them an equal chance to be successful. These are all the things that we're required to do by law. But really why I'm here tonight is because I want to talk more about what we do in Batavia. I think we go above and beyond to help our students, and it's all because we just have such an amazing community. We educate our staff so that they just know, they reach out to these kids without any judgment and welcome them into the schools. We, without question, get them started at school right away. We have backpacks lined up from neighborhood churches. All of the students at Batavia Apartments have one church that donates a backpack to every single child that lives there that's interested. PE uniforms we take care of immediately. And then we're starting to do even more things as people are starting to learn more. And I'm going to go right down to kind of this chip in Batavia, because that's where this has all started. And that's where we've gotten to these other pieces. Can you help me with that part? Thank you. The link to Chip and Batavia, sorry. Thank you. So Chip and Batavia is a really new, exciting community group that started because one parent who is here in the audience tonight, but I'm not allowed to have her stand out because she doesn't want any credit for all the wonderful things that she does. But it's one parent who heard that we had some students that were living at Lazarus House at the start of the school year. And because we weren't able to arrange transportation quickly enough, we just found out about it that morning. Their mom got the kids on their bikes, and I'm not going to look at you because you get all teary-eyed. So the mom got on the kids on their bikes, and first they drove from Lazarus House on their bikes to Rotolo Middle School to drop off their son, and then she rode with their bikes to HC Storm to drop off her daughter, and then she went to work for the whole day here in Batavia, and then she did the same pattern into the evening without asking for any help because she was embarrassed and was afraid that the kids would have to go to St. Charles schools. So once we figured out and helped, nothing against St. Charles schools. I'm sorry, BATV. I love St. Charles School, sorry. But anyways, so this mom heard about this family and reached out to me, and then this started this whole chain of amazing things that the people of, I'm really embarrassed right now, the people of Batavia have done. So since that time, we've developed this website, and it's been giving an opportunity to reach out to families to really go beyond what we're required to do in Batavia. So just to give a couple of very quick examples, we had a family that finally got out of a homeless shelter. Last year, they lived in a homeless shelter the whole year, and the mom would drop off the kids at school, and then the homeless shelter's closed in the morning, and she would spend the entire day in her car until her kids got out of school. So she did that for an entire school year. So this year she was finally at a point where they were in transitional housing, but their transitional housing was completely empty. So no blankets, no pillows, no bedding, no dishes, no pots and pans or anything. And this group has come together and basically had a shower of gifts. So I was able to go to their new home, and all of the kids ran out to my car and were bringing in blankets and cuddling with the pillows and so excited about snacks and the fact that their mom could cook them a meal with the things that this organization has given them. A come to find out that there was another homeless family that I was also helping that I didn't even know that they had taken into their transitional housing. Another very generous person donated support for a family to get their car fixed because they were having to use jumper cables every 2 days to get it started. They were very worried about the family with winter coming, so they were able to get their car fixed. Another family, we were able to help the mom get her license and registration taken care of. She has not driven a car in 6 years and is now driving her kids to and from school events. A little girl at the high school has been to 6 different schools in the past 5 years. This is her first year in Batavia. She's a senior. Every year, no other school district mentioned to her that she had the right to stay. And so this year, we told her that that was her right to stay in Batavia. And this group showered her with gift cards and clothing. She had one pair of jeans and one shirt that she was wearing every day and was really reluctant to even go to class. Her grades have soared from C's and D's to A's and B's. She has made friends. She has announced to the world that she's never imagined that there could be a place like Batavia. So those are just some of the things that this group has done, and they've only been working together for 1 month. So sometimes I get a little overwhelmed because they email me with lots of different ways to help, and they want to do so many different things. And so these are just the beginning of what they're doing. So I wanted to make sure that the board and the public were aware of their website because it's a wonderful way to chip in and show what a wonderful community that we have. We're setting up some great fundraising events, and it's all about just reaching out and helping these families so that they can have a better life. And it's making such a huge impact with these kids. We've adopted schools where we're providing snacks to students that are hungry in the morning. We're doing some tutoring. I can go on and on about all the things that they've done. It's just very exciting. And as a homeless liaison for the district, I get to meet with the other homeless liaisons from all of the districts in Kane County. And there is not even, they don't even compare to what we're doing. So when I tell them about our board and our public and our teachers, they are so jealous, and they just can't believe that what kind of community that we are all a part of. So it's very exciting, and I just wanted to thank you all, and also just maybe spread awareness so that we can all reach out and help these students as much as we can. So, and then you can, I can do this part, Tony. Thanks.
I have to, now you can.
Okay, now I can. Sorry. I get a little nervous. And this is just a message from a student. And if I can make the board president cry a couple times this year, then my goals will have been met. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Dr. Newkirk is going to come forward and share with us some student achievement and benchmark comparison information. Michelle here. Michelle Erickson. Michelle Erickson. I did not see her out there, but you've written her down, so I figured she was going to be introductory. Welcome. This will not make me cry.
We hope. So last month, I was able to share with you information about what happened with the 2013 ISAT and PSAE tests. And when we look at that data, whether it's one point in time or multiple points in time or through cohort data, it always raises more questions than it really answers. So we have 2 additional presentations that are planned so that we can start to answer some of those questions. So tonight, our focus is on looking at some of the ACT data, and again, we'll try and look at that in a number of different ways, but also looking at our data compared to some of our benchmarks. So let's talk a little bit about benchmarking in the first place. We really benchmark for a couple of different reasons. It's very helpful to measure our performance using specific indicators against other districts. In particular, we have two groups of districts that we will be doing our comparison against. And this allows us to not only see how we're performing against those other districts, but also to look to other districts to see what are they doing so we can improve as well. When you adopt a continuous improvement mindset, you really are always looking for that next improvement. So what are other districts doing to get the results that they're getting if they're getting good results? So that's why we take a look at benchmark data. For a number of years, the group that's classified as academic districts, we've used them as a benchmark comparison. So Barrington, Elmhurst, Indian Prairie, Naperville 203, and then Wheaton 200. That's been a very traditional list of districts that are high performing that we look to compare ourselves against. As we go through these presentations, though, we also look to some of our neighboring districts as well to see how we're doing compared to some of our neighbors, especially those in Kane County. So you can see that Burlington Central, 301, Geneva, excuse me. Huntley will jump off as not a neighboring district, but Huntley, as you saw in the handout that comes around, is fairly similar to us in terms of size, number of schools, demographics. Huntley's a good comparison district for us, so we put them in our neighboring district, although they're a little far west. Caneland and St. Charles. So we have two groups. So it's important to kind of remember as we go through the presentation that we have two groups that we'll be showing you. One are those academic districts, and then the other are our neighboring districts, to get a little different picture in each one of those groups as to how our students are performing on these assessments. So let's take a look at an example of that. Here is the academic benchmark group. So we have Barrington, Elmhurst, Indian Prairie, Naperville 203, and Wheaton 200. In looking at our overall performance, so this is the percent of students that meet or exceed on both of those assessments, where do we fall? And then you can see that Batavia is the line right there. So when I look at this information, this really tells me that we are competing well with this group of districts, but there's also things to learn from some of our academic benchmark districts. We'll need to take a look at the left-hand side of that, because the scale goes from 70 to 84. This is fairly exaggerated because to see any difference on a 0 to 100 scale, you wouldn't see much difference. It has to be exaggerated here to see that difference. So we are falling within that range of our academic benchmark districts. Looking at the same overall percentage of meets and exceeds in terms of students, you can see that we perform a little bit better when comparing ourselves to our neighboring districts. So you can see Central, Burlington Central, Geneva, Huntley, Caneland, and St. Charles. And that's the overall performance, with Batavia being that line at 77%. This gives us an idea of how we're doing against those two groups, and also allows us to look for other districts and how they're performing, what their structures are, their instruction, their curriculum looks like, so that we can use that in our improvement efforts.
All right, so then we took an even deeper look into this information and broke it down by grade level. And the next couple of slides, again, we're giving the academic comparison for reading separate from math, and then the neighboring comparison. And we've simply chosen the high scores and the low scores and put Batavia in correlation to those on the graphs. So with reading, what we can see here is that for the most part, we're pretty competitive. However, there is some concern with grade 3 and the fact that we are the lowest scoring district out of all of the academic districts for that grade level and that content area. In addition, you'll see there's a 9 percentage point difference between us and the highest scoring district for that particular piece. Same group of comparative schools than the academic schools. When looking at math, we see the same sort of trend. Struggling, we are the lowest again for the third grade. Quite a significant percentage of difference between Batavia and the high scoring. But again, we don't see that trend in the 5th, 8th, and 11th grades as well. So we look at the same things with our neighboring districts. We do have some celebrations as we go through here. You can see we're much more competitive in these particular areas. 5th grade, the celebration, we're pretty close to being the highest score there. Oh, sorry, that's on the next slide. So we are the high score in math for 5th grade. 1 percentage point difference from 3rd grade. At this point then, we've said, okay, we've seen our overall performance. We've broken it down by grade level for each of the academic versus the neighboring districts, and we've broken it down by content. But we want to look a little bit more into it, exactly what's going on with each individual district and grade level and how we compare across those particular data points. So again, the first set that we come to is the academic districts for the content area of reading. Again, our scale here is slightly distorted on the left-hand side of the screen, but you can see that Batavia is pretty competitive, even with the academic districts. Again, celebration, grade 5, we're right up there at the top with those comparative districts. Again, this just illustrates that there is some concern with grade level 3 that we noticed in the previous slides. Sticking with reading then, we compare ourselves to the neighboring districts. Again, we can see the same things that we saw in the previous, just broken down a little further, how we compare specifically to each district and each grade level. Again, celebrations, 5th grade, 8th grade, top performing. And now we look at the neighboring or the academic districts and our comparison against them for math. Again, celebration in the 5th grade. And neighboring districts for math. Celebrations for the most part across the board, but again, 5th grade. Which when you look at the compilation of the slides we've just gone through then, there's some areas of concern and additional questions that come up that say what's happening in grade 3 that our students seem to not be as competitive as what they are in the 5th grade and again the 8th grade.
And again, it's important to contextualize this information. This is, again, looking at data in one particular way. So it does tell a story, but we want to look for the full story. So while this, looking at this data does show some concerns with grade 3, we do see that our students are performing well in grades 5, 8, and 11. So it's not overly concerned, but it's something for us to further investigate. One of the areas of further investigation is to look at our subgroup performance.
Can I just ask real quick, just to clarify, this is this year's students. This is this year's 5th grade?
This is the...
3rd, 5th, or last?
These are now the 6th graders. So
Okay,
this is
that
the
was what I
test
wanted. Okay.
that was taken in 2013.
So that-
at the end of the year.
Okay.
Last year's ISAT.
Thank you.
Last year's PSA. Good question. So we have 3 subgroups that we track pretty regularly. The first are students with individualized education programs or plans, and we take a look at their performance compared to our districts. And I know this is a lot of colors and a lot of information, so you may need to look at this separately. But really, we look at this to say, all right, where are those high-performing districts so that we can learn from their success? So you can see that there are some very high-performing districts with this subpopulation. So for instance, Barrington School District 220 would be an area to look for what are they doing with this subpopulation that's getting them that great success. So on the back side of the handout, you can see some of the N numbers because that's important to know. So some districts may have very few students in this group. That's not the case with Barrington. They have a number of students in this group, but that would be important to note. We were not able to, because of these relatively small numbers, show you one of the other subgroups that we track, which is our limited English proficient students. The data was all over the place. We felt it was best to leave this out of this presentation, but it is a group that we look at in terms of comparisons as well. But the data, some school districts have 0, so it's hard to see really where districts are tracking with that information. So you can see that there's a little concern, again, going back to concern, but they're contextualized concerns. According to our benchmarks, a little bit lower performance, but generally all lower performance in the 8th grade with this particular subpopulation. Again, the same population in math. Again, we see lower performance at that 8th grade level across the board. But again, with Batavia, that might be an area of concern in further exploration. LII is low income indicator. So these are low income students, students who qualify for free or reduced lunch are in this classification. You can see that they're a much higher performing subgroup. But again, there are places to look where we can start to see kind of standouts. So there are districts that we would look to, particularly Burlington Central does a really nice job with their grade 11 students. So we would look to those districts, start to make connections and explore what are they doing with their students to get these good growth scores. With math, some of the same things. So this is a quick way for us to take a look at all of our benchmark districts for this particular subgroup. And again, the point is to take a look at who's doing well, where can we improve, and it's all about improvement. That's kind of the benchmark comparison piece. Let's move on to some ACT data, unless there are questions that we want to handle now related to the benchmark comparisons. All right.
Were any of the differences that you noticed like statistically significant? I mean, like looking at the earlier numbers, it looked like it went from, I guess just on the, maybe the ACTs, or the percent of students meeting or exceeding. We're looking at 74 to 82. I mean, it was just, it doesn't look like there's much difference there.
You're right. I think that's important to note is that all of these districts are fairly tightly clustered into a range. I think the largest range that we saw was 12 percentage points difference. So if we're looking at, some district performing really well and others performing not so well, we're not seeing that. We're seeing them fairly tightly clustered. And I think the greatest variance or range was 12% between districts.
How do you weight the different numbers? Do you weight the numbers? I mean, straight percentages?
Straight percentages.
I mean, the biggest difference seemed to be when you got into the subgroup population.
Yeah, and we're going to see more variance because this is a smaller N number. So, when you're talking about 200 kids, a couple of kids can swing that percentage each and exceeds. And we see that especially with our limited English proficient students. Like a grade 11, we might test 6 students in Batavia. So, one student makes a big percentage difference when we're talking about our limited English proficient students. And we see similar circumstances in our neighboring districts as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. ACT data. So looking at the ACT data, this is a trend line of ACT composite data over the past couple of years. So you can see the ranges from 2009 to 2013, and you can see the national and state trend lines as well. Batavia scores well above both state and national trends for composite data. And you can see with the line in there that we have seen slow but steady progress in our ACT composite over time. For ACT subtest, again, this is looking at the subtests that comprise that composite score. So you have English, mathematics, reading, science, which feed into that composite score. It's important to note, we look at a couple of tests with a little bit more importance. Not that they're not all important, but what studies have shown is that if students are successful on 2 particular tests, they have a greater chance at post-secondary success. So English and math, the 2 on the left-hand side, seem to be a difference maker. So if students can meet college readiness, and this is not about college readiness, those are two really important subtests as we talk about subtests. If students layer on a third subtest where they're college ready, that's even a bonus where it increases their chances of completing college. So you can see from 2009 to 2013, we've seen pretty steady increases. There's some variability and some flatlining. We see that the reading test is where we're the most flatlined in terms of our performance or our growth over time. And that's probably one of the more unstable of those tests, but that is something that we continue to work on. It is a part of the Batavia High School Improvement Plan as well. 2012 was a really good year, too. I was talking a little bit about college readiness, and just like when I talked to you about the ISAT and the PSAE, there are changes this year. So when we talk about college readiness, what we're looking at is what score a student would need to get on that subtest to have a 50% chance of obtaining a B in that college level class and a 75% chance of earning a C. So ACT did a massive study. The first study, I think, was like 97,000 students. They looked at their freshman level college classes, and they said, all right, they worked backwards and said, all right, what score did these students get to get this grade in college? And you can see that previous benchmark score. So to have that 50% chance of getting a B, 75% chance of getting a C, a student would need an 18 on the English subtest to get a B or a C in that freshman level English composition class. It would be a 22 in math to get the B or C in college algebra, a 21 for social science, and then a 24 for biology. Biology was always hard for us to explain because if you think about students going into their freshman year of college, you're thinking about a smaller pool who will take biology as freshmen. Usually those are science majors. So it's not usually a gen ed requirement in freshman year to take biology. So you can see that the biology number is much higher. Those students, when we did the when ACT did the regression analysis, scored much higher. They redid this same norming process just recently. This one they renormed with looking at college data from 230,000 students and from 214 different institutions. And it changed a little bit of those predictor scores. So the current benchmark scores remain 18 at English, 22 at math. It went up to 22 at reading and dropped down 1 point to 23 in science. So those are the college readiness benchmarks that we're now using. I wanted to explain that difference because it is different than years when we presented this in the past. When we look at this, we see state and national data in terms of achieving those college readiness benchmarks. Batavia scores well above both state and national levels. We saw that in that composite score as well, so that's not a misnomer. One of the important ones that I look at is meeting in all four. Again, 2 seems to be that benchmark for post-secondary success. 3 is even a bonus, but look at the number of students, the percentage of students, 43% of students meeting in all 4 benchmarks. To me, that's something to really be proud of. You can see 5-year ACT trend data in the subtests of the percent of students meeting college readiness. And then the ACT subtest performance benchmarked against all of our benchmark districts. And you can see that in English, we're one of the tops. Math, again, very strong performance. Reading seems to be all over the board for people, just like it is for us. Science, strong performance, and that's been over the past 5 years, one of our growth areas is to see science college readiness. And then again, very solid performance in meeting all 4 college readiness benchmarks. Last time there were also questions about growth data and what we're doing locally. So in our December meeting, we will talk a little bit about our MAP data, which is the measures of academic progress, which is given 3 times a year to a majority of our students here in Batavia Public Schools. We'll also talk a little bit about EPASS, and EPASS is the ACT suite of assessments. So on November 8th, we gave our students many of these tests: the Explore test, the Plan test, and then final, the ACT. And we'll talk a little bit about our transitions from talking about meeting a benchmark to really growing student performance and taking students from where they're at to where they want to go. So that will be the topic of our third presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
Brad, what's the process of dissecting all this with your principals and the staff in committees and that? I mean, so how do you go about that, just quick for the public and everybody to get an understanding of it?
Sure, I try not to, again, each data slide tells kind of a small part of a larger story, and I think it's important to contextualize this as part of a larger story. So teachers have a story to tell about how our students are doing in their classroom. Schools and principals have a story to tell about how the students are performing in their school, and then we look at some of these benchmark assessments as a part of that story. So it's really getting all the voices heard and really taking a look at what is the full picture, and that really helps us to decide things as a district and as a staff at a school where we want to target those improvements. In our school improvement plans, they're really focused on math data because it's more timely. All of this data is a one-time, one snapshot piece of data. It doesn't make it irrelevant. It's just a different type of data where if we're taking a look at map testing, we can, over the course of a year, see how a student's progressing with a midterm assessment. And that's a really important story to tell because I think that's why our teachers come to school and work so hard every day is to grow our students. And I think that that's a valuable piece of this data story. So I know school improvement plans are really affected by this data, so it's one of the benchmarks that we use. Sometimes it's a little clunky because it's only one time a year, and you want more immediate feedback as a school improvement team.
I have a quick question. Just in the ACT data, do you become a little skeptical of standardized testing? I'll just put that outside. I know it's totally necessary. I get that. But do you have any data as to how our students, like how many of our students actually take like the prep courses? Because I'm a firm believer that you can teach to that ACT test.
You can see it, you know, they promise certain scores. I don't know the validity of that number, but you do see there are some studies which show an increase when a student takes it the first time to the second time.
We don't have any data on how many of our students take prep classes or
No.
anything like that.
I would say a number of students do. I wouldn't hazard to guess.
In December, you're going to show us some growth data. What will that come?
That'll really focus on MAP and EPASS. So the two things that we look at are MAP, that helps us to determine student growth over time. And the nice part about MAP is there's a large pool, a large norming pool, since about 8.4 million students take MAP tests. So it's a great way for us to take.
I'll be able to see that. Okay.
Yes, yep, we'll do that next time. And then with EPASS, that Explore, Plan, and ACT, again, it's not as timely as MAP, but we can start to see really the value added from Explore to Plan to ACT.
That's where the information.
There's a lot, to me, a lot more information there.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Next, Dr. Hitchens and Mrs. Lightburn-Coley will be talking about the Board of Education Communication Plan.
Great, and as you know, we presented this in October, and we had a discussion, and this is the board's communication plan. This is the different ways that the board will communicate with the public, and I think it's very timely tonight to talk about it as well, in light of some of the frustrations that we saw about people wanting to give their feedback, and this plan really does highlight there's, you know, as I'm looking at it, there's a half dozen, or there's more than a half dozen ways that we are collecting information from stakeholders and collaborating and engaging in our discussions. The public comment is just one small way that they can provide their feedback to us, and we can consult with them. But you could see on this communication plan, there's many different ways, because as we know, from what you guys have been saying all along, is that it's more than just communicating out the information. It's also about working with the community to engage them in these discussions. So we took your feedback last time, came up with, Raquel did quite a bit of work incorporating your feedback into some communication strategies that she's going to just highlight a couple of them. You have the plan in front of you, and then we'll see if you have any questions or suggestions. Raquel.
Yes, so based on our conversation the last meeting, we developed 3 specific goals, and around those goals, developed strategies for accomplishing those. And out of those strategies, we came up with a few tactics or communications methods that are above and beyond what we currently do. We are proposing 8 new methods of communicating and engaging stakeholders, and they go from the continuum of informing to engaging to collaborating with stakeholders. So we're proposing several electronic, print, and interpersonal methods, one of them being introducing a Beyond the Headlines blog, where board members would participate in writing a blog every month or twice a month or as needed, depending on what is necessary to be discussed or clarified for the public. We're also recommending, based on your input, the publication of what we're calling a Connect one-on-one newsletter, a community newsletter we're thinking will be published twice a year and sent out to not just parents of the district, but also business members, senior citizens, and other taxpayers who would be interested in what's going on with the board, with the district. We also discussed using existing mechanisms such as Neighborhood Batavia magazine and actually dedicating one page each publication where we would discuss board issues and advancements in the district and other things that of interest to stakeholders. And in terms of actually involving and collaborating with stakeholders, we're recommending the development of what we're calling the President's Forum, which would include a key group of stakeholders who would represent different factions, not factions, that's probably the worst word to use, different areas of the district. Different stakeholder groups where we would get together on a quarterly basis to discuss topics, share ideas, and get feedback from the community. So really taking the time and going beyond just a coffee and conversation, but being more strategic in who's invited, the topic that's discussed, and sharing out information following those sessions. And another thing that we thought would be a great way to help involve and give a more personal touch to the board and connecting with stakeholders is what we're calling the community conversation, which we're proposing to begin a half an hour before each board meeting, where several of you at different points, not the whole board, but 1 or 2 would meet in the lobby and just kind of press the flesh with stakeholders, be more approachable, talk with them, just connect on a level that you don't typically do in a board meeting. So we're proposing several of those. And so you have the other ideas as well that we're proposing, as well as existing ones. I just want to take an opportunity right now to just answer any questions or get any feedback on any of these that you think this was to be great or this really isn't in our plan right now. If you can just give me some feedback, I would appreciate that.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Before you got to the plan, there's some goal-based strategies.
Yes,
Can you just
absolutely.
explain to me a little bit what you mean by a communication audit?
Oh, sure. A communication audit is a very comprehensive, step-by-step, strategic focus at what's existing in our communication space. So actually going through each publication, each strategy, each method, and understanding what's involved, its effectiveness, stakeholders, etc. So really taking a hard look at what we're doing and whether or not it's effective or not based on what our goals are.
Okay.
So that's done either with an outside agency or it can be done in-house.
So that's looking at all the areas that we use to communicate and seeing what works best.
Exactly. Yes, that's it.
Something I noticed that is not, I have a couple things. something that I noticed is not on here are the websites. It's here a little, there's bits and pieces of it, but I really feel that we need to improve or work on improving all our individual schools, district, and high school.
They need to be better.
They need to be easier.
So, right, this is about your, if you have a concern about your page on the website, all of the principals and myself and Raquel also have communication plans that address the website as one piece of our plan and making sure if you look under like the HR department and the C&I department and student services, you're already going to see some revamped pages.
Okay.
And so that would belong to other people's plans. So if you want to talk about the
Just our
website,
board.
you should talk about your
Our
page.
board part. Okay. That I don't know.
And yes, we are addressing it. That's a valid concern.
Okay. I think a lot of what we discussed last time, there are a lot of ways to communicate, and I think that was established. And we also talked about, even if we put it out there, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to read, listen, okay? A lot of this stuff I think is great. I think a lot of it we do already.
Yes.
Again, it's just a matter of getting people to do it. I think where we need to focus, and whatever your feedback, everybody's feedback on this is that, yes, it's that one-on-one, not how we're doing as a district as a whole, but when there's a specific concern. When parents are coming up here and talking, when community members are coming up here and talking, and they're asking specific questions, how do we communicate that? How do we address those concerns and get that out to the community?
Yes.
So I'm looking at some of this, and the community conversations I thought is a great idea. The half hour beforehand. I like that. I also wanted to ask about that parent ambassador network and how that works. I think a lot of this is also understanding that, and I know we've stressed this in our coffees, is that even though questions are proposed, come before the board, we don't always have those answers too.
Yes.
So that's, I don't want the communication to be misleading to our stakeholders, because we still may not have all the answers, even though we're opening this huge communication, which I think is still important. So,
I think to rephrase that, what you're saying is sometimes people direct questions at you that could be better directed somewhere else, and that should be
right.
Yes.
Or we just we just don't have the answers right now.
Right.
But I want stakeholders to be able to still ask the questions.
Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of that is important.
I think this is very comprehensive. I think you've done a very nice job.
Yeah.
I have a concern. I think we do a pretty fair job of connecting with the parents because they're engaged. One thing we have in Batavia is, for the most part, our parents are very engaged in the education of their children. It's half the battle. We're lucky that we have that. I think we really have to reach out to the stakeholders out there that pay the taxes that don't currently have kids in the district for whatever reason. They're older, they don't have kids in the district, because they do still have to pay their share of the tax bill. They have to know what's going on. I like the idea of this Connect 101. I'm hesitant to spend any more money. But I also know that there's a lot of those, the easiest way not to spend money is to go electronically, but there's a portion of those shareholders that are not connected electronically that we do have to reach. So I like this idea. I'd like to see when you put $3 signs. I think of that the way I think of the Chicago Magazine and I'm looking for a restaurant. $3 signs usually means that my husband's not going to like it.
We're not going there. Yeah,
so I think that's a good idea because one of the concerns I have is not reaching those stakeholders out there that don't have kids in the district. Because I think they're a little bit of
see more of that, Melanie, like that more addressed?
Yeah, I mean, obviously as a parent, I see the parents all the time. I have a kid in the middle school and I have children in elementary school and next year I'll have one at every school. So I think I have a lot of opportunity to interact with the parents of the district. I don't necessarily have opportunity I didn't grow up in Batavia. My parents don't live here, so I don't have an opportunity to interact with the over 55 crowd necessarily. And I think they're just as important. So I would like to find ways to connect with them also because their opinions need to be heard also.
Something proactive rather than just.
Yes, and I think you can't just, I mean, I want to do it cost consciously, obviously, but you also have to understand, you have to understand that they aren't necessarily online. I mean, I know a lot of them are online.
Right, but not everyone is.
But not everyone is. So. I like the idea of that Connect 101 that comes out 4 times a year, but I'm also concerned with the $3.
Twice, yeah, that will be twice a year.
Oh, okay.
Connect 101 would be semi-annual.
Neighbors magazine.
And it
Yes,
might be,
a neighborhood.
Raquel, I mean, there are pockets of our senior citizens especially that, we've got a large supportive group at the homestead. I'm sure there are places where we could go on the road.
Yes.
Sure. And I think we have a really engaged board who'd be happy to do that. So that might just be something where we're doing some other informal things, and that might just be a great extension.
Yes.
Where we're going out to people who aren't necessarily going to be.
We're not necessarily going to run into them at the football game or
Right.
basketball game.
Right.
Okay.
It's a total cross-country meet.
You did, I mean, this is great.
This is and I don't know how you are trained to learn how to do this because this looks.
What I would like to do, I don't know if we agree on this, is there's a lot here.
There is.
I would like to see what works and then scale it down. Because I think some of this can get a little repetitive too.
Okay.
I know sometimes you can over-communicate, maybe the wrong thing too. And in the electronic, it seems like, the first 3 or 4 could be combined and, we could, over time, once it's.
So do you know what you're saying? You want to make sure we keep assessing what's actually effective so that we're not.
Well, they're having it on like a rotational basis, so maybe the topics kind of, turn over, so it's not always one topic that you're driving to, like, 1 month it could be based on our policy, 1 month could be based on, our effects on, how we lay out our plans with the board.
Yes.
Because some of my notes I have, sorry to cut you off there, Tina.
No, you're
Okay.
saying exactly what I said.
Yeah, so where it's, to keep it fresh, to keep it engaging, and not just be like we're lathering information out to our shareholders, to make it interesting, to make them see, what is a true timeline for how, when a project is incepted to when it's completed, not, we need a new parking lot. All right, next week, let's get new blacktop out there. It doesn't work that way. It seems that way sometimes to our stakeholders, but
It's not
to give
parking lot,
them.
it's artificial turf.
Well, there's other issues like that as well, but to give like kind of a plain English perspective.
Yes.
And a true behind the scenes more or less view.
Yeah.
Different issues require different methods.
Right.
I agree. Sometimes when you see magazine, it's a little too fluffy. That's like
it's kitschy.
And like your Friday feature, that's awesome. But I think we need to go beyond that.
Everybody's getting.
I guess an example that I'm thinking of is
I think the Friday feature should be like that though.
I like it.
Friday feature should be
Right, but I think
fun.
you're saying that's
No,
not-
that's what I'm saying, but I think we need to take it, not only that, an additional step. And I'm going back to a parent complaint. Okay, let's just say we had a parent complain about something that is going on at a school, Grace McWade. They're upset about something. And they contact a board member, and it's a good complaint. I'm only saying that is because that's my homeschool, Jeff. But what happens if that complaint is something that the community also may be buzzing about? So instead of just addressing that one parent complaint, how would we be able to address the community when we know that's a buzz in a community? Am I saying what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'm not just talking about what's happening in BPS. Let's just, for example, the lunch increase. And I'm just using this as an example. I have not heard anything. But let's just say a certain school was really up in heels about it, and we heard some buzz, but we just addressed one specific group. How can we take that information and address that to the entire community so to stop the buzz, to get the answer out there? When I look at communication, I'm looking at things like that. And yes, when the athletic plan was rolled out, we addressed that as much as possible, but individually, I feel, when how can we address answers to an entire community? So I'm not just looking, what I'd like to see us do is not just, are the concerns and issues in that manner.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out how to help with that.
Well,
Because sometimes, I'm sorry.
no.
Sometimes that, that community buzz trickles and trickles and trickles. And
wanna get ahead of it.
And how do we nip it in the bud? And that's the things I'd like to see.
Yes, that's why I think things like the Parent Ambassador Network and the President's Forum and other key communicator groups are people that you're not just giving information to, but they're the ones with their ear to the ground as well, and they have the instant information they can report back to us as well. So you're not waiting for the board meeting to hear about it. So really considering who those stakeholders are that will be a part of that Parent Ambassador Network, considering people on VIC, considering people in the community, considering people at the homestead, just different areas of the community, different parts of the community who can give you that feedback and not just be communicated to, but to actually share the information with us as well.
And policies, too. Policies that directly affect, not every policy directly affects all our stakeholders.
Yes.
But there are policies out there that do. And, I think we could better communicate the changes and updates to that also.
And some of that is actually, though, some judgment on, we have to decide which topics are
Right,
those topics.
absolutely. Absolutely, because some of it, not everybody has to hear every bit of a policy, but one that does
Right, so I think there's a whole process, and I think we're starting it, and I think we're all eager to be at the end of this instead of the beginning, because we have a group here who are passionate about communication. So I think they're like, yes, let's do this, and then figure out what works. And so, I think we're taking good first steps.
And I think some of these things you might need to test, and maybe you don't, you kind of sift through them and see what works and doesn't work. Right. Just because we do it doesn't mean we have to continue doing it if it doesn't seem like it's working.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a pass-fail type of thing. You have to see what works, and maybe some things will work as we massage them a little bit, I think.
Greg, were you?
I think that, I don't know if it's a fear, the biggest concern we have is staying within the guidelines of an Open Meetings Act and things of that nature. But yet, sharing and passing information is not really conducting board business, and I think that's part of our job as elected officials here, is to be able to pass on and educate the public on what we're doing. And I don't think that violates an Open Meetings Act. Maybe we need to be re-educated on, and maybe the public needs to be re-educated on what really the Open Meetings Act is all about, and so that we can clearly communicate with them, and they can communicate with us in a way that we're not violating. It's always been a bug since the day we had to go online and take the test, but there's also systems in place and processes that we need to follow. And I'm not saying we throw it all out, but I think these are great ideas and great elements that we can expand on, but I think we're not, I guess I'm wondering where are we tippy-toeing around the Open Meetings Act, and when are we not? I don't know.
I think it's that one-on-one personal.
Because that's what they want. They want to talk to a human.
Is there a particular area, Greg, where you're concerned that we might be pushing up against that?
I don't think we are. I don't think we're pushing it enough.
That's
what I'm saying.
Oh, I got you.
I think we're staying back too far in fear of violating that act. And I don't think we are. We're not conducting business. We're not voting on things, and that's where we have to vote on things in public, and we do that. We don't violate that process, but sharing of information, I don't know how much of a violation we are there. That's kind of our purpose. And so maybe that's why I'm kind of
Sure.
And
I think it's also important. It's important to remember that if people are coming to you, as Kathy called them before, as tour guides, that's a great way where you could say, hey, have you seen this on the website? This is where you go to get that information, or share your share information or ways that they can get that information, but when you start to talk about, if people are asking you, what's your opinion on, how are you going to vote on, well, you speak as a board, you vote.
Exactly.
This is where the business takes place. So you can help communicate and say, we're about to have a discussion. Here's the ways that you can chime in. You can go online and fill this out, or you can do this. And then at the board meeting is where the business takes place. So there's that one line. I do want to say something that Melanie said about trying some of these, and it really let's try some out and see where we go and reassess, and then to go back, what Tina said about communicating a specific issue district-wide. When Raquel put on here this facts of the matter, so that would be like a one-page fact sheet, and you guys would say, let's do a facts of the matter on, so like the lunch prices. You said that you didn't want to do the lunch price increase until it was communicated enough. So Raquel put together a whole communication plan for that one topic, and I think once or twice a month you can say, I think this would be a good facts of the matter, where she does go into a little bit more detail and doesn't just put it up on the website. That plan for the lunch prices was very comprehensive and very thorough, and so once or twice a month it would be okay to say, hey, let's put out a facts of the matter on, and you can give us a topic and we will help that.
I understand that. Better than
I think that is, and I think that
came from you guys.
I think that addresses your point, Tina, because we may not think to do a facts of the matter until we hear buzz, and then that's when we're going, okay, this seems like, and then we've got this entire comprehensive plan of this is how we're communicating it in all these different ways. So we have the opportunity to be proactive as well as reactive, which I think gives us about as much flexibility as we could hope for.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, all of this looks great, so thank you. And I think I can speak for all of us that I think one of our things is really trying to be as approachable to our stakeholders as possible. And that's, I know, a goal of all of ours. So we're doing our best to try to figure that out. So you're right, we're going to have to, like Melanie said, figure what works best and what doesn't.
Yes. Well, I think you also have to keep in mind, too, you're not going to be doing all of these
At the same time.
everything all the time.
Right.
Some of them are, for like the lunch prices, you wouldn't necessarily use the neighbor's magazine because it's not really going to be in a timely fashion. And
You don't want to
by the
write a
time-
blog about that?
Well, that might be something you could blog about because that would be timely. So, I don't know if anybody really wants to read about my blog. You can tweet about it.
Sure, I'll tweet everywhere.
Any other questions? It is tough. Thank you, Lisa and Raquel.
Tweet
for
Yes,
doing
thank
that.
you.
Thanks for the feedback.
That's awesome.
Great.
Welcome.
Chris, yeah, come on, can you share enrollment?
I don't know how to even say.
Sorry, I was shushing my fellow board members, calling them out of order.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, in following up with where we started in October, when Dr. Newkirk and Mr. Pierce started talking about the class size report, we took a brief look at our historical enrollments over the past 4 to 5 years. And we said we would be coming back this month as to what that would translate into our enrollments going forward. So tonight is a brief glimpse. What we want to do first is discuss the methodology of how enrollment projections are developed. The primary means of doing this is developing something called a cohort retention rate. Where we discussed it briefly in October, but you really measure how many of the students in one grade level are retained as they go into the next grade level. We are not talking about retention, someone remaining in their grade level. We don't want to confuse the issues. We're saying how many kindergartners go on to become first graders, or do we add additional students? Is it more than 100% for that retention rate? As we move through high school, are we retaining all of the students? Do all of the freshmen become seniors, or Do some children drop out of school? Do some transfer to other schools? Yeah, exactly, transfer to other schools. So that retention rate is then, we look at multiple years of those rates and average them together at the same time. So if we have 5 years of attendance data, you can actually have 4 different retention rates that you can average together to try to get the best sense of what's happening. If, as we've seen over the past 5 years, the economy or the housing market is really taking weird swings that you haven't seen for years before, you may look at only 1 or 2 years worth of data and use that retention rate. If things have been doing the same thing for multiple years, you stretch it out, you use 4 or 5. Some districts have used 10-year retention rates at the same point. The most unknown factor in any enrollment projection is what do you do with kindergarten? As a unit district and as elementary districts, the one thing you cannot really predict is how many kids are likely to show up on the first day of school. It's your least certain factor. One of the things we look at is birth rates in Kane County. Those in the past 5 years have dropped by over 10%. I believe it was around 7,700 back in 2008. It was 6,500 in 2013 was the most recent. We're not done with 2013 yet. But what portion of those are actually within our district? It's this is all of Kane County. And at the same time, that doesn't really take into effect what is happening within your local real estate market. For a long time, families would move in, move up into that next house as their students were getting close to a school-age level. Well, we all know that the housing market kind of stopped, so we don't know if we were getting that, intergenerational turnover. So we've seen our kindergarten numbers drop for 5 years now. So one of the things that we've had to try to look at very closely is what do we do predicting kindergarten going forward? Have we hit rock bottom with our kindergarten numbers, or are we really going to continue to see a decline? So the first thing I want to do is go to the snapshot of a spreadsheet that was included in your board packet.
And give me one moment.
Yep, that one's going to take, and we'll probably have to enlarge the numbers when it gets there too.
Mrs. Dremel, could she keep it?
Yeah, it was in your board packet, so you have the ability to enlarge on your own. Yeah, there you go. So apologize to the viewers, but this is included online. But you can see this was the summary page of the spreadsheet that we developed to do our enrollment projections. We also send our numbers to an external source, and their numbers are very much in line. They use slightly different formulas, but the overall gist of the projections is the same. So at the top is where we have all of our historical numbers, and what I wanted to highlight again was the decline in kindergarten. 5 years ago, we were at 478, and we're down to 382. So what we have tried to do in our projections is we're currently, in these projections, our kindergarten numbers should not get much lower than that. We have used a 3-year average of our total kindergarten numbers and then spread that back out over our elementary schools. But at the same time, you'll see that there are big jumps in first grade as people come back. Perhaps they went to some type of private school for kindergarten, come back into our school in first grade. So these numbers are generally rather large. The retention rate from kindergarten to first is over 100%. We see the same type of phenomenon when we go from 5th into 6th. We have a large number of students that come back, not large, but it's over 100%. And then finally, another thing that we noticed even last month is numbers going from 8th into 9th are generally less. Some students may choose to go to some type of private high school and leave our schools after 8th grade. So all of the rest of this is summarized on the next couple of slides, and we get into some graphs. But we do break this down by each building. We originally developed a retention rate for each school building to see if we could capture some neighborhood phenomena. But when you shrink down the size of the school and then apply a percentage, it really takes things out of whack. At one point, it had J.B. Nelson growing to like 770 students. Really? Yeah. Don't be alarmed. We threw out that data. But so we looked at the entire district's retention rate and then applied it to each elementary school to try to get a larger sample size there. So if we can go back to the PowerPoint, please.
Excuse me, do you think
Yes.
that the kindergarten numbers are dropping since we no longer have full-day kindergarten?
Well, and that's another one of the, I don't want to guess, but that could be one of the factors. I personally think it has more to do with the housing market than it necessarily does the all-day kindergarten, because we still do have the avenue through our relationship with the Park District for students to be in our schools all day. But that's something we knew we were going to have to watch when we made that move away from all day. So we will move into graphs now. So the next couple of slides are just giving you some big picture summary information. We are choosing to use a 3-year retention rate. We believe that what we've seen over the last 3 years gives us the most accurate representation. If we used 1-year data, it was a more steep decline in our enrollment, and we just didn't think that that was going to continue, especially with the kindergarten numbers. So this has us going from 2667 is what our fall housing report came out this year. It does have us declining over the next 3 years down to just under 2,600 students. So if you spread that out over 6 buildings and 6 grade levels, that's not a big drop. We don't expect to see a lot of staffing changes. We aren't going to be able to drop sections, because we're dropping 100 kids, because this is spread out. You're really talking maybe, 5 to 10 kids per grade level of school if it was averaged everywhere. And you'll see on the last slide when we, scope back out, as Brad was saying, when you change the scale of the graph, things look a lot sharper. And this really isn't that significant of a change when you look at the overall district enrollment.
And this is just elementary.
That was just elementary, and so is this slide as well. We moved to the next slide. This is what the elementary building enrollments. You can see J.B. Nelson is the one that shows the sharpest movement, and that is the formulas that we used. They have a large kindergarten class this year. 88 students is what was in the number that was in this projection. They have been that high in the past, but a couple years before, the few years before this, they've been a little bit lower. So our formula is sort of correcting their kindergarten number for this year. Of course, if they have another year of 88 or 90 students, these numbers change, but this is our best estimate at this time. Most of the other elementary schools stay very stable in this projection model. Questions on this, or?
Well, with one rising and one falling, everything else kind of relatively staying the same. Mm-hmm. And they're obviously on the other side, opposite sides of the river. We don't have to worry about redistricting or anything like that, which I wouldn't want to go through. Mm-hmm. But is there ways of offsetting that, balancing that out a little bit?
Well, the one thing that obviously this board has heard and discussed quite a bit is the other programs that we have at HC Storm. Right. And again, this is a projection, so this is not certain. And these are the students that are in HC Storm right now. So the special programs that we are housing at HC Storm are represented in these numbers, and they just become part of the cohort going forward. So that's a little quirk that we would have to find the right way of accounting for in our projections, because if we only want to count homeschool and not where it is that we house special programs, we would have to modify this a little bit. But you would have the ability to discuss, is HC Storm, is that where you want to house these programs long term? Is there, do we see enrollment shifts in our other elementary buildings that are significant enough that we open up classroom space, and you could, that's a discussion as we get more firm numbers, coming in.
So Chris, this graph right here, how does, because that last one, remember the one you had to enlarge, because according to that one, I bring Storm up again, their numbers are going to be increasing. They're one of the only schools whose numbers, significantly. Does this graph?
When you say significantly,
12
kids.
Well,
this goes up 18, 20
not
kids.
significant, yeah. Well,
but they're already 50, 60 kids ahead now.
Yeah, well, Nelson is the highest right now.
Right now, okay. Great.
But yeah, this is, we're not making recommendations. This is just,
Right, we're just
this is
making
providing you data that,
Yeah.
this is our best estimate at this time of what the next 3 years could look like. So as you start having discussions about what to do and where to have programs in the future, this is one of the pieces of data that you should use.
Which we could share with our stakeholders.
Yes.
We've had people from Storm come forth and are concerned about the classrooms there. So hopefully this answers, or there's something that will lead to discussion to help answer those questions.
Okay. Next, quickly looking at the middle school. Middle school and high school projections in Batavia, having one of each is much simpler, and we don't have to have the boundary discussion and where we're going to move things. And these are obviously based on the 3-year retention rate as well. Rotolo and the high school are truly the most, the data that impacts them most are the numbers and the grade levels of the children that are moving up through the system. So this year we're at 1476 with Rotolo. We do have a large 8th grade class that will be moving up into the high school, replaced by a smaller 5th grade class moving into the middle school. So we will see a decline through just random numbers. We get back to the same exact enrollment the year after before we climb back up near the 1,500 student range in Rotolo. So again, over 3 years, only a 23 student shift overall, though each year there's pockets that move through our system. Finally, the high school. We have like I said, we do have a large 8th grade class moving in, but it's also a large senior class that will be moving out. So this shift is not quite as significant, but then we have some smaller classes moving into the high school and some larger classes moving out. So we do predict that the high school enrollment will decline over the next 3 years. Finally, we wanted to give you the scope. If we scale this back to 0 and show you the elementary, middle, and high school and the total district enrollment, those lines are not very sharp in their slope at all. So the best message we have for you is we have some pockets that we will need to solve over the next 3 years. We have some bubbles. And then at our elementary level, we will have some building decisions that we will need to problem solve some specific building enrollments. But overall, we do not see that the enrollment of the district changing significantly enough to where we will be making much different staffing decisions or needing to add or remove sections for enrollment purposes. So, and at some other time, or at the Finance Committee, we can show you the effect of using the 1-year rate. The spreadsheet that we had up, it was a PDF snapshot of a spreadsheet, but we can click through and just change those 3 boxes, and it will change the numbers there. Or we can prepare graphs that overlay each of the rates so you can see an aggressive or conservative enrollment projection. But even in the most aggressive enrollment decline, I believe it only shifts the students by about 50. So, other questions I can answer on this?
How accurate have you been in the last few years on your projections and stuff?
In the past few years, we've primarily used the external source. So I had to recreate this spreadsheet from a previous life, shall I say. And in that district, it was there were a lot more schools and a lot more, we got into specific neighborhoods and the number of students that would be coming from each type of house, be it condo or, and so those type of projections get very accurate. But over the past 5 or 6 years, the change in the housing market has really thrown a lot of what were previously, very good methods. As houses stopped turning over, you had to sort of look for a different avenue, and so you had to change some of your underlying assumptions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris. Dr. Hitchens, policy 6.65, social and emotional development, just for discussion tonight.
Yes, and it's more of information, I would say, but I'd be open up to have a discussion if you had any questions or comments on that. If you were unable to make it to the policy committee, this is the policy committee, we presented this last Wednesday, and then the committee said, hey, why don't you present it to the whole board and to the community as well. So in the spirit of engaging the community in our discussions, we wanted to have a community, we're calling it a Citizen Advisory Committee, and the culminating project for this group would be to have a community discussion in January, and the topic that we picked related to policy was our social emotional learning policy. And the policy is based on law, so in the state of Illinois, all public schools in the state are required to address the social emotional learning standards. That's part of the law, was to create the standards at the state level, and then the schools need to implement those standards and measure and teach to the standards of social emotional learning. And so locally, we do have some choice on what programs we use to address those standards. So there is some local choice, and that we can incorporate into our policy. And we have had many people comment on our policy and some of the things that we do related to social emotional learning. So we thought this would be a good topic that people are interested in and that have given us their feedback, and we can have a good discussion about it. So what we're going to do is invite a group of citizens and teachers and administrators and a board member, to be named later, to their job will be to research this particular topic. We'll give them everything they need. We'll give them our curriculum, what we do currently. We'll give them the law. We'll give them our current policy and some research. And they will prepare themselves, and they will seek out feedback from their community contacts as well, and we'll give them some help in soliciting that feedback. And the culminating event, like I said, will be a discussion. There'll be 15 people. It'll be an open meeting, so anyone can come, and we do want people to come and listen to the discussion. The people who are in the audience will have feedback sheets to provide to us after that discussion. So you're taking notes as you go along. Give us your feedback at the end of the discussion. We're going to give a survey to our parents and students and staff members, and those survey results will be given to the committee, and they'll discuss those as well. And so then after this discussion, the policy committee will look at all that information and process that discussion and talk about how that would impact our policy, and if we need to rewrite our policy and if you want to give different direction to administration. So at the end of the school year, we would have a policy that would reflect what the parents and the students and the staff expect of us when it comes to social emotional learning. So that's the overall outcome at the end of this Citizens Advisory Committee.
And one of the things, I'm not sure if you mentioned, Lisa, but that I really like is we're also talking about inviting experts in as part of our committee that would hopefully donate their time and help shape and guide some of the conversation that we're having about this topic, so that it's not just our opinions or our parents' opinions, but it's a well-rounded, fully informed conversation.
Questions or feedback for me?
Well, I have concerns, and I kind of said a little bit at the policy meetings and behind the scenes also, and it's a little bit clearer for me now when I did a lot of reading over the weekend from the state law. But I still have, for me personally, I look at it from 4 fronts. And so I look at it as a parent on the social and emotional avenue. I then look at it as my own personal view, which can be different from as a parent. You know, if I agree with it or disagree with it, but I know it's a state law, so here's where we got to be careful. I look at it as a former teacher because now we're putting this onto them to teach some of this, which is kind of, to me, the politicians say we got to do this, and some people, for me, I would never be comfortable with it. So I have that front to work on it. And I think the biggest one is as a board member, because now I'm going to make a decision. And so after doing a lot of reading over the weekend on this and having some discussions, that I have come to, the committee, I think, is going to help me out because you are going to have parents, you're going to have faculty, you're going to have students, you're going to have administrators, you're going to have experts, and so on and so forth. And then anybody else can come and listen and write notes, as Dr. Hitchens has said. And I think then that's where I have to make a decision, yes or no, for the policy. You know, I mean, I'm struggling with it on it, and I think that is the avenue that is best going to sit with me right now, because as I said, on the forefront and going, so I'm going to encourage all stakeholders, citizens, teachers, to be here when we talk about that, because that is how the input is going to hopefully decide how I'm going to vote when I look at it, because I have to look at, as I said, forefront on how I feel about this, that I don't like the state laws on some things coming to us and dictating things to us, but we have no choice. And so I've been very hesitant sometimes at the policy meeting. I'm saying a few things on it, could have been sitting back, but I've always had stressed about the part of the teachers and a few other things, but after reading about it and seeing this format here, I just wanted to at least give my input into how I really feel about this right now for the discussion, so everybody's clear on where I'm at and how I'm going to go with this. So.
And Jen, I think you probably verbalized some concerns that a lot of stakeholders have, but I do want to clarify one thing, and I think you hit on it, Lisa, is part of what we might be doing is revamping our policy, correct? Mm-hmm. So it may not, Jen, end up being a yes or no on what we already have, but an opportunity for us to create a policy that appropriately reflects the laws, but also represents what our stakeholders and our community feels that our district should be doing. So I think it's a better and broader opportunity to address all of those concerns that you have and that many of our stakeholders have shared with us. And I think that's part of the overarching purpose of having the committee, use this as their first topic. So hopefully we can allay some of those concerns.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you brought up something about like teaching these.
Well, teachers have responsibilities regarding the policy, and those are John's concerns.
But I don't know that you would ever be asked to teach something that you're not qualified to teach. Is that correct?
I think that you would be. I think that certain areas of the law, this one in particular, are being asked to, not every teacher has an expertise in social emotional, but yet they're asked to address it on a daily basis.
Address it, but I mean...
Right. And that's John's concern. He's saying as a teacher, he did not feel comfortable addressing that. Am I correct, John? You shared that.
Yes, because there are state standards.
I guess I was thinking...
And there is, I didn't print it all out, but there are standards in that you'd have to.
I'm thinking teaching a course.
No.
Okay.
No, but you'd have to address it.
Right, the goals are achieving school and life success, maintaining positive relationships, and demonstrate decision-making skills and responsible behaviors. Those are the goals of the state. So how do we attain those goals? And, what staff members are key to teaching those?
Because unfortunately, those are very broad.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of things that can fit under those umbrellas.
And you're certainly not going to say, oh, John, the area you're teaching, we don't expect you to worry about helping them make lifelong decisions.
No, but it has to be consistent.
Right.
From kindergarten to 12th grade.
That's definitely...
Somebody might want to do it. Somebody might try to...
Right. Right. And that's, I think, John's concern.
And like I said, I'm concerned on all the parts, on all the fronts. So that's where I was just coming up right front after really looking at it a little bit more this week. I just don't like it.
I do not like the state mandating anything. But you know how I feel about that. But at least it's so vague and so broad, somewhat, that allows us, with the help of all these stakeholders, develop and implement a policy that is, as you said, truly reflective of what our needs and goals are for our district. Okay.
I agree.
You gave us a mandate. obviously unfunded like everything else. And then, but at least it's vague enough that we can kind of go, okay, here's where we're going to take it.
And hopefully, so it doesn't happen, like you said, kindergarten through 12th grade, so that there's consistency for a child coming in kindergarten through 12th grade that may fall under those umbrellas, that they're having consistency through kindergarten through 12th grade. And that's something hopefully our policy can help with, hopefully, so that, you know.
And the policy itself currently is just over a page, and because really it's a direction, it's a philosophy, so you're not burdened with the details, you're giving us a direction or a philosophy about what direction you want us to head.
And doing nothing is not an option. It's the state decided.
That's right. I have a quick comment. Yeah. The third sentence in the invitation, the third to last sentence in the invitation letter, I think is missing a word.
Say that one more time.
The third to last sentence in the invitation letter.
Third to last sentence.
It's in the second to last paragraph. The last sentence in the second to last paragraph.
Or to contact these people.
We will contact you about your response to this
I
invitation.
think it's missing a U or something.
I believe you are correct, Melanie. Thank you.
Anything else?
Much less insignificant issue, but.
Still relevant.
Helpful nonetheless.
Nothing worse than the school district who can't write appropriately.
Right.
Did you mention, or did you want to mention that this is only like the first
Oh, thank you. That's right.
several to come?
Sue from the policy committee remembered that this is one of, we plan on doing 3 citizen advisory committee discussions, community discussions with 3 different committees, and we would have those in January, March, and April. That's what the policy committee decided, because we'll do this in January and it'll give us time to tweak and plan for the next ones and the next 2 topics.
All right, are we done discussing? We have one item under action tonight. Dr. Mon, could you please talk to us about your recommendations regarding the tax levy?
Yes, ma'am. To be clear, tonight you are not taking action. You are not approving a tax levy. This is essentially the numbers involved with the tax levy are a discussion this evening. The action before you is to publish a proposed levy in the paper and set the date and time of the public hearing in December. All taxing bodies are required to adopt their levy by the last Tuesday in December, so it will generally be at our regularly scheduled board meeting in December. So the action tonight is to publish a proposed tax levy and set the date and time of the public hearing. That's a rather easy task, so let's actually look at the numbers that are involved. First of all, remember this is a tax levy. There's 2 sides to this process. The tax levy is what we are asking for. Generally, we will ask for more than we expect to receive because the county clerk will apply a calculation known as the tax cap, and that will limit our tax levy to the consumer price index or inflation over what we actually extended the previous year. That's the other term to remember is the tax extension. What we ask for is the levy. The county clerk applies a calculation, and then they create the tax bills, which get extended out to the community. So the extension is what gets translated into the tax bills that are delivered and paid by each of the property owners. I've got to catch myself up at the same time. Excuse me for one moment. There we go. Getting into the numbers. The 2013 proposed tax levy. This is the total levy is going to be much larger than it was last year, and we've been discussing for many months and many years as to why that is this year. The individual funds, we are recommending a levy of $44 million for educational purposes, $7 million for operations, $2.5 million for transportation, $750,000 for municipal retirement. $1,050,000 for Social Security, $7.3 million for special education, and the final one is not actually part of your levy, but we include it here just so we can look at total. Our debt service, our bonds and interest this year will be $10,442,253. The final one, bonds and interest, the county clerk already knows exactly how much we need to make our debt service payments, so they extend that on your behalf. You do not take action on that with the levy. That is a little over $7 million more than we extended this past year. That's a significant number. That is a 10.88% increase over what we extended this past year. On the following slide, we'll get into exactly why we are asking for such a large increase this year. But the increases in the operating funds alone, those which are tax capped, we are asking for $62.6 million in total. We extended just under $55.5 million last year, so that's an increase of almost 13%. Bonds and interest is almost exactly stable. The bond payments are very similar between what we paid in 2013 and what we will pay in 2014, so an increase of just 0.03%. And then we already discussed the difference in the totals of 10.88%. If we can go to the next slide. We've been talking about it for many years, but this is the year in which the EAV from Aurora TIF number 2, that TIF has dissolved, and it comes back to us very similar to new property. It's in a slightly different category. It's called TIF recovery. But the EAV that we get to count outside of the tax cap this year is $92.1 million. At least that was the estimated EAV based on the most recent data that came to us from the Kane County Clerk's office. What that means is that that is not part of the operating taxes that get just inflation. What we extended this year, we get to increase by the Consumer Price Index, which was 1.7%. And then outside of that, we get to add in all of the new property and TIF recovery that is coming back into the district. Without all of this TIF EAV coming back in, our levy request would really be closer to 2%. We are increasing this by almost 10% to make sure that we access all of the TIF funds, that all of the TIF property that is now eligible for us. However, even by asking for all of this from the TIF EAV, including it back into our debt service base actually means that the overall tax bill for most of our residents, for the average homeowner, should actually decrease by anywhere from $20 to $28 depending on the final EAV. We can go forward, Tony. As I was just saying, the Consumer Price Index is 1.7%. That was the Consumer Price Index from January 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2012. So it's almost 11 and a half months out of date already, but that's what applies to this levy. We're currently predicting the total EAV drop of existing properties of about 5%. The estimated EAV came back in at 3.34% decrease, but historically from the moment we get the estimated to the time that everyone files their tax appeals and we get the final EAV, it's dropped by another 1.3 to 1.6%. So we're currently estimating a 5% decline. We are using a new construction number, for lack of any other better term, of $95.689 million. However, 92.1 of that are the funds or the properties that are now eligible for us to reclaim from that TIF. And all of these assumptions, if they held true, should yield a decrease of about $28 for the average homeowner, and that's a drop of about 0.63%. So while we are asking for 10.88% more in funds from our property taxes, the large majority of it, actually almost the entire increase, is coming from the properties that were part of Aurora TIF number 2. The existing properties should actually see a small decrease in their tax bills. That is all of the information that I prepared for this evening in order for you to be able to simply publish this tax levy. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the EAV or the percentages that went into this. We did discuss this in length at the October Finance Committee meeting. With advertisement, we did move this month's Finance Committee to next Monday. Currently scheduled for noon, but we may move that to either 11 or 1 p.m. So look for the announcement of that. But obviously this will be a brief topic there, but we will also discuss it at the December Finance Committee before holding a public hearing that night and then asking the board to take action. So still more time to discuss details or make any modifications that you would like to see. Any questions?
I kind of have a question that maybe it's not off topic, but let's say we didn't, and this is just maybe a dumb question, but if we didn't ask for the increase in our levy in order to recover the TIF funds that we were due, where would those funds go?
They would still get fully taxable. The process here is that that EAV is coming back into the district no matter what. It's going to lower our debt service base. You would basically have to lower the for lack of a better term in the formula, you would lower the inflation increase that you would be asking for if you did not want to add those funds on top of your normal operating increase. So if you wanted to keep your operating tax, levy the same as what you extended last year, that EAV would start paying into that amount as well, and the operating tax rate would be lower. So it would lower people's tax bills further.
Okay. But so essentially, we're asking for it so we can get it?
Yes.
And is this just a one-time that we have to ask for it, or is this over 2 years?
Well, it'll be over 2 budget years.
2 budget years.
But yeah, this is the one levy where you can increase your aggregate extension base to include those properties. Yeah. Next year, they are just part of the existing property, and the levy goes normal.
Normal levies, okay.
We will not have a 10% increase that we are requesting next year.
Any other questions? Then do I have a motion to publish the tax levy and put the public hearing on the agenda for the December 17th, 2013 meeting?
Can I clarify? You're publishing the proposed tax levy.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Matt.
Important clarification.
Yeah, I didn't have your proposal in front of me, so I wasn't.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Hatch, second by Stutes. Kathy, could you call the roll?
Hodge and Stutes, is that right?
Yes.
Blakely?
Yes.
Gaspar?
Yes.
Hodge?
Yes.
And Casado?
Yes.
Locke?
Yes.
Stutes?
Yes.
Trammell?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.
Thank you.
All right, we'd like to move on to comments. Our student ambassadors. It's been very long.
What has it been?
Starting off today, auditions for our winter play took place. It is called the Greek Mythology Olympia Ganza. Comedy. Comedy. And that cast list is actually posted, supposedly, could be up now, 2 hours after the audition, so we'd like everybody to check that out. The cheer team is collecting items to support families affected by the recent tornadoes. This is important to help the surrounding communities, that suffer much more than we did. Thursday after school, there'll be an informative meeting from 2:45 to 3:15 in D108. Softball season is now starting. And my favorite point of the day, the football team is in the state semifinals. Saturday at 1 o'clock, we play Rockford Boylan. State championship.
Megan, before you start, real quick, Jake, do you have information if people wanted to donate to the cheer team, how they could find out about that?
Yeah, you can drop off any items to the athletic office at Batavia High School.
Thank you, Megan.
Is there a list of items that are being requested, posted anywhere?
There is on the daily announcements. It's things like shampoo, toothpaste, conditioner, even Ziploc bags, because a lot of them don't have ways to waterproof their personal items. But there's a complete list on the daily announcements.
Perfect.
That's too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
More celebrations. Mayanna Croach is going to state for swimming. So congratulations to her. I know we don't get swim team in the announcements too often, so it's a pretty big deal. Fall musical, Shrek the Musical, was a huge success. All shows were sold out, which is pretty big because the beach act is pretty big. So that was really great. I thought it was wonderful. It's beautiful. Cross country, my favorite point of the day. Cross country boys advanced to state for the first time in history, and this is the high school boys, and they placed 23rd. So made history, and that was a really big deal. And cross-country girls, we sent 2 individual qualifiers, Dakota Roman and Miranda Gray, and it was the first time in our history that we had sent 2 individuals. Usually we only are able to send 1, so that was another big thing. And Dakota placed 66th, and Miranda placed 95th, and that was out of 210 runners. So that was really impressive. And then the girls basketball team, we just found out, won their first game today. So starting off the season right.
To finish up here, Rachel's challenge is taking more steps in the school. When you walk around there, you may have noticed all the inspirational quotes up in the lockers and the walls. There's an incountable number of them, and they may not seem like a big deal, but to someone who is having a rough day or a tough time, sometimes words can just change things around. So that's much appreciated by, I know if I can help out with it.
I did. It was great.
And last but not least, our focus group about the music seasons was held. We still have to discuss it with Mrs. Smith, and then we'll gather a summary together, and we should be able to have a good report for you guys next week.
Great. Thank you.
Great. It's always great hearing from you guys. Thank you for bringing that student voice here at the end of every meeting. It's always nice to, it's always something that we look forward to, so thank you. I do have to say that the work of the district takes many hands, and last Friday, as some of you know, was School Board Appreciation Day, School Board Member Appreciation Day. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank them for their volunteer. They are volunteers, and they put so many hours. You couldn't believe how many hours a week they spend becoming informed and communicating with you, helping you to become informed, and they really do have, all of them have the best interest of the kids at heart. And so we are so lucky to have this board. So, and I'm not just saying that because they're my bosses, I'm saying it because I really do believe that. So,
Thank you. All right, we're going to shake it up this time. We'll start with Tina and circle back around to John.
I'm thrown off. I really don't have, I mean, there were a lot of celebrations today, and I want to congratulate all of those students and faculty in the celebrations, and go Bulldogs. Good luck this weekend.
Mr. Hodge.
I hope I'm not stealing some of John's thunder.
No.
No. On the 2nd of November, there was a BIC meeting, and give us their representation or listening in on the Batavia Interschool Council meeting. Robin Lang from AFS, the Youth Exchange Program, made a presentation there. Really pretty cool. And they are looking for, there's a shortage of host families that I found out, so it's interesting. And Leanne Rodriguez from the Early Childhood
Speech Pathology
Center. Yes. She made a presentation about the preschool screenings and things like that, and awareness about that, and the early childhood program over there. And it was very informative. And there's a number of people, a number of young children that were on a monthly basis that are screened. I didn't realize the number of people in and out of those doors. What else? A PTO meeting that was very informative. That was my first one I was able to make over at LWS, and they have a lot going on over there. Last week, basically, Jennifer Horseman was here telling us all about it, so we got some neat programs there. There's one that was kind of cool that I think is trying to be implemented around the whole district, but they want to get a parent. What am I looking for here? Ambassador, thank you very much. Going where they can help get the newer parents involved that have maybe younger children that are just getting into the school, get them more involved. And obviously it's always nice as being a former member of many volunteer organizations, getting that young blood and that fresh look on everything and getting those people involved. So help many hands make light work. So more people can get involved. That's a great idea. I hope that's taken on district-wide so that everybody can get everybody involved. As part of, I think it's probably falls right in line with our whole communication process and everything. So that was pretty cool to hear about that. And I think I'll stop. And go Bulldogs. And did go see Shrek. It was phenomenal. I walked out when my jaw was dropping. It was so cool. I mean, we just are so blessed to have great staff, tremendous students, so talented in many different places. I just was overwhelmed. So it's busy, exciting times here in Batavia.
I wanted to thank everyone for their well wishes last Friday on Board Member Appreciation Day. Who knew? There was such a thing until I started getting these little well wishes from all the people out there. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. It was great to see the celebrating successes. It's always nice to see and hear about the things that people are doing around. I want to say go Bulldogs, but I also want to recognize that behind the students, there's parents that support the kids, and they need to be recognized too. So thank your parents for all their help that they give you, because they're schlepping you to orchestra practice or drama and, but go Bulldogs. Not just the football team, but the swimmers and the basketball players and the cross-country team and the orchestra player and everybody out there, because everyone does a phenomenal job. And I guess that's about it, because I'm sure John will say more.
I just wanted to point out that it was great to hear from JB Nelson PTO today. They're doing awesome stuff there. I know my daughter loves the soccer goals that are at the school there, and the parking lot's great. So a ton of great improvements that are definitely appreciated by parents and by students alike. And also looking forward to that Watchdogs program getting off the ground and running too. We're already starting to lay the groundwork for that. Congratulations to Rotolo Middle School for cross country. That's awesome. My daughter has some friends that are on that team, and my daughter hates running just like her father, so I don't think she'll be joining anytime soon. Wanted to thank the BFE for their awesome grants. It's so great to see our community giving back to our own educators to benefit our students. Raquel had one of her articles about the football team embracing the Rachel's Challenge, which I thought was really, really cool. Passing that along to Batavia youth football players and creating such a positive image for a sport that, typically is seen as a bunch of, strong guys that are throwing other people around, It's just great to see that, there is a caring side to our students in athletics as well, and that's great. Also wanted to touch on the homeless students. That was a great presentation today. It really touched me. So I'll be signing up for that chip-in for sure.
Yeah.
And awesome job by all of our athletics, of course, as always, and go Bulldogs.
Obviously, I have to start off with Go Bulldogs because I'm very proud of the football team. I also implore everyone to go out to Rockford this weekend and cheer our Bulldogs on, and also remember that you are representing Batavia, so everyone be on your best behavior. And whether you're 58 or 8 or a teenager, remember you are out there and you are representing the community, so let's go out there and show everybody at a Catholic school that us public school heathens can behave ourselves too. And go Bulldogs. And I'd just like to say, I don't know if anybody saw the condition of that football field after that game on Saturday, and if anybody's driven past it recently. I don't know who has repaired it, but it looks much better. However, it was quite a mess, and I don't know how much it cost to get it looking back together, but there are reasons we have an athletic plan, so let's take into account we've had some bad weather this fall. That field's taken a beating. And whoever keeps taking care of it, thank you and good job. I also like, as the first trimester ended at the elementary schools and the middle school, I had the opportunity to meet with all of my student teachers, and I have to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the bring your student with you to the conference. I tend to like to talk about my children behind their backs. So, but I have to say this year, my children have been blessed with wonderful teachers and wonderful staff members, and they were very informative conferences, and I just like to commend the staff. All of my children are showing growth in areas that their genes are not known for, such as math. So go Batavia staff, because you are doing that. It's not coming at home. And again, congratulations to the football team and all the fall sports. Great season. That's all I have. John?
Just a few things. Again, I want to thank everyone that came out for their comments. here tonight and then during the coffees that we have to get-togethers. I would like to thank all the people that have made donations to the specific schools or specific plans, especially like for what's going on over at the varsity baseball field right now, because I talked to Pat and asked him if everything was going on schedule, and he said it was, and they tore out the dugouts, and I saw the fence posts were up and everything, so it looks like everything's going well. And I want to thank everyone here at RJAC for getting all the paperwork ready for committee meetings, answering all my questions behind the scenes and concerns, and being prepared for tonight's meeting and every meeting that I've attended. Thank you guys and ladies very much. I visited J.B. Nelson last Monday and had a nice tour of the building with Principal Nicole Prentice, looking over the new lighting and blinds. And after talking to a few staff members, what a difference they said it has made. And my daughter is a senior right now, and she was there from kindergarten through 5th grade, and it is night and day. I mean, really, it's that simple. I mean, it is a big difference. So I'm glad things are working out over there. I also had a nice tour, I think the next day, with Principal Joanne Smith at the high school. I was visiting the science labs and the food room and a couple of the vocational and fine arts areas, just seeing how the classrooms were and how they were set up and everything. So I appreciated that. Again, I went to the baseball field. I said, I will be visiting Hoover Wood, which is my school, next Tuesday. There's a dance festival going on by the kids, and I guess the teachers too. So I'm just going to stay off to the side so I don't get caught. I want to say there was this nice article in the Daily Herald yesterday. Batavia Main Street is working with our graphic design kids at the high school.
With the banners?
With the banners, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, you know, for designs and for voting. And it says you have to vote on Facebook. Well, I only do email. And just getting texting right now, so forget Facebook and all that. I'm not doing that stuff, so please vote for them. I'll have my wife do it. I saw the play Shrek. We go to all the plays, and phenomenal. I mean, great performance. I mean, they always blow us away on what these kids do and everything. It's just fantastic. I would like to wish everyone safe travels and happy eating during Thanksgiving next week. Be safe. And I saw the, and this is kind of a two-part thing. I saw the Batavia Bulldogs at football on PATV. I think it was the first playoff game. It was raining out and cold, and I was leaving for out of town the next day, so I didn't want to get drenched and get sick, and because I was going off to another football game, and I was going to get soaked anyways. But I want to thank Kathy and Greg for putting a guilt trip on me to my wife, because I had to then get on the internet and pay a donation to BATV because my wife heard Kathy Dremel, then Greg Hodge, and she kept looking at me and says, well, aren't you going to do anything? And I kept trying to ignore her, and then finally she put the guilt trip on me, and so I did, and then what happens after I do it? It blacks out.
John took the system down.
I took the system down, so, but I did contribute. And finally, as Greg talked about the Early Childhood Center during the last big meeting, I was kind of touched by it. And so I would like to throw out this challenge to my fellow board members if you want. And I'm going to write a check for $50 to help with the donation for this cause for the Early Childhood Center, because you know, they are pretty much funded by Allison Gustafson's PTO and the school there and so on. And a lot of our kids go there. So I've talked to Kathy, and I told her that if anybody would like to donate anything to give to her by Friday or so, and she can send it off. And after the presentation today on the homeless part, I will probably go home now and do another donation. So I'm just sucker for donations, but I think they all go for good causes.
And the
so.
early childhood donations.
So here's my check, so I'm not lying. So
That was
there
to
it is.
support field trips and other activities, right, John?
And the library, because they don't really get the funding for it. And hopefully they will maybe apply for the grants and so on. Not for field trips per se, but for the classroom part to help off-cost that, so then they can use some of the other money for it. But for this year, I'll try to help out if I can. So just thought I'd throw a challenge out there. And I'm going out of town this weekend, so I won't be able to go to the football game, but go Bulldogs. And I will come back early if they're at state from Michigan, to drive back early in the morning to go to that. So let's hope for it. Thank you.
Thank you. At the risk of crying again, I won't reiterate all of the really great things that this district is doing. But on a night like tonight, it's incredibly, it's a real privilege to be a part of this district. So thank you to everyone in this room, because almost everyone here is a Batavia parent or employee or community member who is part of what makes this district and this community so great. So thank you. And on that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Impastato, second by Gasper. Voice vote? You can voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. You're adjourned.